no one after drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good. And I've already told you how the word old there, the word good there can be translated as better. In fact, it is translated as better in some translations. So we can say the old is better or the old is good. If indeed, and you can hear me kind of chuckling over this, if indeed the standard Christian allegorical example or interpretation is accurate, that the new is replacing the old because the new is good, the new is better, new equals Christianity, the old equals Judaism, and all that it entails, right? Law of Moses and people of Israel and all that stuff. That's all included with the package of old versus new. If that's the proper interpretation, then why does Yeshua introduce in verse 39, no one after drinking old wine, i.e. Judaism, desires new, i.e. Christianity, for he says the old, i.e. Judaism, is good/better, right? You start scratching your head and going, well, that doesn't fit. And guess what? You're right, it doesn't fit. So let's just kind of stop and look at these passages again. We've already talked about how that the word new, and when we talked about new wineskins and new wine, it's not even the same Greek word. Koinos, kainos and neos are the two differing Greek words that are somewhat synonymous. They can be synonyms in certain contexts, but they can also, if the need arises, act the part of carrying a nuance of one being new chronologically, like new in time, and the other being new qualitatively, right? So it's the same thing, but it's just been refreshed, refurbished, reinvigorated, right? It's been brought new qualitatively, but it's the same old item. Versus the other one, the other word plays the part of describing something that's brand new on the scene, as in never existed. So we could talk about how that plays into the idea of, are we replacing Judaism? And it's on that note that we're going to turn to David Stern's commentary and pick up where we left off. I backed up a paragraph. We left off last week. We read the paragraph that I'm about to read again, but we're going to read it one more time so we can finish out David Stern's thoughts. David Stern is a Messianic Jew. He's the author of the Complete Jewish Bible, the Jewish New Testament, as well as the Jewish New Testament commentary. He is a Jewish believer in Jesus, which means he believes that Jesus is the Christ. He's a Christian in that regard, but he believes that Judaism is still a viable way of life. That's why he uses the term Messianic Jew. He doesn't believe the law of Moses has been discarded and done away with by Christianity. So his position is going to be radically different from those of the traditional church, Christian church. Let's read his conclusionary statements. He says the meaning of the figure, and he's primarily centering on the wine aspect, right? Because that's the part that's kind of most marked when we're talking about this old and new incompatibility aspect. The meaning of the figure is that the new wine of Messianic living, right, Christianity, cannot be poured into old religious forms if they remain rigid. David Stern is working under the same assumption that I am, that the average, standard, historical, popular Christian perspective of replacing the Torah with the law of Christ, replacing Israel with the Gentile Christian church, replacing the Old Testament with the New Testament, etc., etc. All of that is inaccurate. He's still working from an allegory, David Stern is, but he's going to spin it differently in a positive way so that we can end up reforming Judaism and retaining a Jewish way of life, a Torah-observant way of life, and indeed, we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I call this section of my commentary Old Man, New Man, and Messianic Judaism. And the reason I do so is because, as we're going to see later on when we get to Tim Haig's comments, it's not necessary to think of throwing out the old system altogether when we can simply take Yeshua's words. If indeed he's using an allegory, we can take Yeshua's words and apply them along the level of what Yeshua is talking about, reform from the inside out, not necessarily throwing out all of the religious social systems of the day, right? That's not the type of reform he's talking about. Rather, Yeshua has always been pushing the envelope on, if you want to be acceptable to God, my Father and your Father, or our Father, then you need to start with a change on the inside. The change that needs to take place and the change that matters the most is something that's invisible to most people. It's on the inside. It's the heart level. That is the challenge that Yeshua is going to over and over emphasize. He's going to emphasize over and over and over again in his teachings and his instructions and his challenging words. So let's pick up David Stern again. if David Stern says, but if the old religious forms become fresh, right? Notice the word fresh in his commentary is in italic quotes. It's because that's the Greek word kainos rather than neos, fresh, as in refreshed or renewed or reinvigorated or refurbished or something like that. We've given the example of if I were to buy a refurbished laptop from Apple, which you can do, then you're of the understanding that it's not a brand new laptop that has never been owned or never been opened out of the package. It is, in fact, a laptop that's been reworked or repaired, or they wiped the OS clean and reinstalled it again or something. Either way, it's not a brand new. It's a used laptop in that sense, but it's been refurbished by Apple so that it feels brand new to you. But the reality is that it's not a brand new laptop, and you get a discounted price for that. And for many people, that meets their needs. Other people are like, no, I want a brand new, never before opened, never before used, never before owned by anyone laptop. And if that's the case, then we would opt for a different Greek word if we were applying that. So we have two Greek words. We have neos. I'll flash these on the screen and post for us. We have neos, which represents new in the parables and that Yeshua referenced. In terms of new wine, neos is the word that's used there. New as in brand new, new chronologically, new wine, neos, which the root word is neos or neo. And comparatively, when he talks about wine skins, he doesn't use the word neos. He uses the word kainos or kainos, if you want to, kainos, however you want to pronounce the Greek, however you were trained and studied Greek. I pronounce it kainos. That's how I learned it. And this is the word that David Stern is rendering fresh in his commentary using the quotes. It doesn't have to mean chronologically new. It can carry the nuance of new in quality. And if the old religious forms become refreshed or fresh, as in refurbished, reworked, then they can accommodate Yeshua. And he goes on to say, when kainos is rendered new, as in many translations, and I mentioned that it does show up as new in, let me think to myself, I think it's I think it maybe NIV might be one of the translations that renders it new. We'll go back and look at that, like comparative translations, a different day, maybe next week or something.